You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast, DomBrightmon. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by the GoingNorthPodcast.com shop. It is going to help you have northbound direction to your own success. If you want a great inspirational quote like advance others to advance yourself, or today a reader, tomorrow a leader, heck, even some puns like pile on and always fully booked on your tote bag, mug, hoodie, heck, even a t-shirt, and many, many other items, head over to GoingNorthPodcast.com, click on the shop tab, and cop yourself some merchandise indeed. And that's GoingNorthPodcast.com/shop. And today on the highlight reel, builder for authors known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, it's the Going North Podcast. We got another super special, awesome human for you today, courtesy of my buddy, Mr. Eminem, Mr. Mickey Mickelson, all the way from, well, formerly Canada, but now we kidnapped him metaphorically. Had him naturalized down here in Texas, indeed, even though I'm not in Texas. That's right, indeed. But it's all part of the US of A. That's right, indeed. The barbecue is usually a good way to lure him in. That's right, indeed. To keep him in, indeed, because today's guest hooked me up with one heck of a super special, awesome beer. You're going to be in for a treat that's good enough to eat, because today's featured author is a retired entrepreneur, baby, from the dental industry, as well as a black belt martial artist and an avid British sports car enthusiast. And my man is now writing novels, baby. That's right, indeed. Novels with all the twists and turns to make you think you're playing 5 games of Twister at once. So let's give it up for Mr. PTP himself, Peter Thomas Pontsa. How you doing today, Peter?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing great too. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Right, indeed. Welcome, indeed. So, my goodness, so since your first time on the show, folks haven't heard your backstory yet. So, mind filling in any cavities I've may have missed about you that makes you the Peter that you are today?
Well, I'm married. I have a tabby called Mr. T after Mr. T from the A team because he wears bling. And yeah, he used to get lost all the time. So we put one of those little trackers on his neck. I was always hanging low like Mr. T's bling. So we call him Mr. T. So I live with him, live in the country. I've got some country property, and I do some gardening. Right now, I'm battling the rose mites and the aphids and that, trying to keep my little miniatures going. And I do a little bit of gardening here and there, and the lawn and that sort of thing. I'm actually kind of retired. I would like to consider myself a country gentleman, sort of, with a little bit of free time to do some writing and hopefully, you know, get some people out there excited about my novels and the stories that I'm writing. That, that's it from this standpoint. Besides what I've been writing.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, what got you in the dental business, my man? Because my goodness, and thing is, you're actually selling dental supplies too. So, what got you into that?
It was a fluke, you know. Yeah, it really was. I was living in San Francisco in the height of. Yeah, I'm going to date myself now. In the hippie days, and I came back home to Toronto and didn't have a job, and so my parents said, shave your hair, cut your beard, find something. So I looked through the newspaper and there was a French job for a dental technician. And it was really interesting because the first week I had to learn how to pour these diagnostic models and without bubbles. And they didn't pay me, but I managed to get the owner to give me a bus ticket, so bus fare to get back there. And I went from there. I ended up after 7 or 8 years, I got a registered dental technician license to open up dental labs. So I ended up with 2 different partners. We had dental labs, and in the final analysis, I was still in the business, and I met my wife, and we went to Europe on a trip to
Ooh,
bring my mother-in-law back. Yeah, my mother-in-law hadn't been back to Holland in many years, so we got lost. And they have something called the VVV, which is something like the CAA or the AAA, and they went to find out where we were. And I happened to see this tooth hanging in this window, and I thought, oh my God, it's a dental lab. I said, I'm going. So I went in. I wanted to see how these people were living, the guys, how they were, or whoever the owner was, what kind of living they were making, whether it was anything close to what we were doing in Canada. I knew some people in the States too. So while I was there, he was showing me some information, and I couldn't believe these dental products that were not in Canada. So when I got back home, I phoned up the company. I started to get in touch with them, and they said, "Wait a minute, we've got a distributor in the States." And I was dogged to get this line for Canada. I said, "Look, they're not doing a good job. If they are, they asked me to join them. They asked me to work for them." I said, "That doesn't make much sense." I said, "I can do a better job on my own." So they called me back. I went to Europe went to Germany to the company, spent a week there, signed an agreement, and they gave me the exclusive distributorship for all of Canada. So my wife and I built it up after 22 years. We sold it to my competitor, and that was maybe about 10 years ago. So during that time, I was doing some marketing because we couldn't afford it at the beginning. We couldn't afford anybody, so we started a newsletter, and then I started writing dental articles. Then I met a publisher in the dental business, and we started doing advertising with him. And he said, "Why don't you write some articles? You're a licensed technician. What you're doing?" I said, "Fine." So I wrote some of those, and I got doing more and more of those. And then eventually, when we did sell the company, I thought, what am I going to do with my spare time? I thought, I do know how to write. That's one of my strengths. So why don't I just see if I can do some fiction writing? So I took some workshops, and then I also took a course at the University of Waterloo to help me get it a little bit more established. And then I started writing. And I went to last February. We published my first book, Outfoxed. So there it is in a nutshell, Dom. That's how I got started into the dental field. Yeah, from a hippie days to a retired country folk.
That's right, indeed. And became a black belt taekwondo martial artist along the way. So, did the big giant tooth from heaven lead you to realize, hey, let me break some wood, break some boards, and maybe break some bones if I have to?
No, no, actually, that was a different situation. I was getting kind of stressful, and I needed an outlet. So I joined a club. I had taken when I lived in Toronto. There was a Japanese martial arts club on the corner. I used to walk there. I was there for maybe about a year or so. I didn't find it all that fun. I dropped out for a long time, and then many years later, I decided that there was one way to deal with stress, and that was just to take it out on a bag. Maybe I could get someplace and meet some people because I didn't have much of a social life either because of the work loads and everything. I was still a single man at that time. But, yeah, I joined up. Mr. Kim used to be a police officer in Korea many years ago. Moved to Canada and started his club, and spent like 4.5 years with him. It took me about a year to get my blue belt, and then it took me about a few years to get my black belt. The second one I got after about 4 years, and then during as you know anything about the martial arts, as you're getting your belts, you're also teaching the lower ranks too. So you're moving up and you're learning quite a bit about um, leading and teaching and exercise programs and that sort of stuff. So it was interesting. We did a few contests too. I think we went down to Akron, Ohio. We did some martial arts down there. I think I was doing kata or patterns. I wasn't much of a fighter. I mean, I could fight, but I mean, I prefer to do the kata because it had more. I like the style and the gracefulness of it, and moving your body in the right moves and trying to get the stances proper. And I still actually, even after all these years, I still remember 9 of them. Although I'm not in a club anymore, I ended up having a detached retina, so I don't go anywhere near a club because just some accidental kid could put me in serious jeopardy. So I just stay away from it. But I do practice, and I still know at least 9 of them. Keeps me busy. So I haven't lost anything. But yeah, and we did break a few boards, but it's all for show.
Heck yeah, indeed. Heck yeah, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. And that's huge too, because I did Taekwondo myself and got up to the blue belt myself in those forms. It's like that's something you have to like practice every day or you'll freaking lose. And like that was most of the annoying part of it, but it does build discipline and everything like that. And still remembering nine after all these years, that's freaking huge. So my goodness, so being able to retire from the dental business, having the past as a hippie, loving the peace and love and keeping the body fit for ready for wonderful combat, my man decided to join the business of immortality with your wonderful book, Outfoxed indeed. So how does all this play into this wonderful first of many books to come, my man?
Friend of mine, one night we were having a single malts, and there was something we always used to call Scotch wisdom. And he said, "You know, I've been reading this book. It's really interesting. You should get involved in it." So it was called 1421, written by the late Devin Menzies, and it was the year China discovered the world. And it's a story about Admiral Zheng He, who was a real admiral in the Chinese Navy. And the emperor at the time sent him out with about 100 ships with treasure to sail around the world as far as it could possibly go and do interchange between the new people that they were meeting. And they would exchange gifts and embassies, ambassadors, and that sort of stuff. So I thought this is an interesting premise because Gavin Menzies was saying in the years that he took to write this book. Oh, I should also mention that he was a commander of a UK submarine, so he already knows navigation, all that sort of stuff. So he spent a lot of time on this book, and what I found really fascinating was that he also mentioned that the admiral may have made it up the east coast of the United States, right up to Canada. So I said, well, what if they left one of his treasure ships there? So, wouldn't that be interesting? And then I decided maybe let's make it into an adventure story, and I'll find a character and we'll build it around there. So I came up with William Fox, and I thought maybe he needs a girlfriend. I came up with Tracy as an archaeologist that's working there, and she gets kidnapped. Um, and going back to their backstory, they were both in Korea when they were younger, and they both grew up. She became an archaeologist, and he became, of course, the RCMP investigator. And their parents were actually very close, even though the kids separated. And the father of William got a message that the father of Tracy that she was kidnapped by the triad. So he was sent out to find her. Along the way, he picks up some help from the FBI. I created another character there, Patrick Riley, and they go to Hong Kong and they get her back. But then, unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of other things happening, and I don't want to give the whole book away, but that's basically the premise of the story. And yeah, yeah, I'm working
Sweet.
on the next one now, and they'll be both of them will still be in there. Working title is called After the Fox, but I may change that depending on what the editor has to say.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
I,
Because
obviously, we don't get the last word when it comes to that sort of thing.
depends on the route you take. Because if I'm not mistaken, you actually went the hybrid route, right? With publishing his book.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was. I didn't want to wait. I've heard so many stories from some of these famous authors that they had to wait years and years and years before, and I didn't have an agent, so I thought we'll do the first one this way. And now I have Mickey, and hopefully, once we have the second one set up, second novel, I mean, we'll just have a publisher, and we'll see where we go with it that way. But I won't be hybriding into the next one. I believe it was a one-time thing. The point is, I just didn't want to waste any time, and I wanted to get it done as quick as possible. But for avid, or for newbies or people who are just beginning to write, I think the traditional way is probably still one of the best. And there's always Kindle too, if you feel that if you can't find someone in you, depending on your, I think you also depend on your circumstances too.
You're definitely right about that. Because that's the main advantage of really going the indie publishing route as opposed to looking for a publisher, especially a big house publisher, to publish your work, because it's like, oh, all right, so we got to go through this 1 year process once you get your book done, and then we'll finally put it out a year later. And then you probably have an idea for 10 books, and you got 3 books ready to go. And it's like, oh, I have to go out and promote this book that I am a year apart from. And it's like, oh, but my heart is somewhere else than these other novels I wrote.
Yeah, I was rather naive when got involved with this. I had no idea that the publishing business was is what it was. And as you go along, you find out how it's really quite an interesting place with its own set of parameters and things. So yeah, it's not for the unwary. You should be prepared for a lot of the things that go on in it. And I've heard some people who are not happy with the way things are. I've heard some gripers. I've heard some people who are happy with the way things are. Was when I recently heard that there was the publishers have very very strong grip on the whole industry, and there's only like 40 authors who actually are the ones that make all of the money in the publishing business. And I've heard that sort of kind of gossip too. So, and of course, there's the other gripe about these authors who are posthumously are using their names to be written. Their stories are written by other authors, and of course, they do well too, even though the original author has been passed on many years. Certain people are unhappy about that sort of thing too. But I mean, it's life. What can you do? And, I mean, it's been passed on for many, many years, but we still enjoy this stuff, and it continues to satisfy curious audiences. And I like James Bond. I guess a lot of people still do.
Oh, heck yeah. Like, James Bond is freaking cool. Like, look, I love freaking James Bond, especially all these years. My goodness, it's like, if I'm not mistaken, 70 years has been around.
Yeah, it's a 7 year anniversary.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. Like, how can you not like freaking James Bond too? And my
Well,
goodness.
there's some great.
So,
Well, I'm not knocking it because I was just at last weekend. So June the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, I was involved in Motif, which is the mystery festival which is also in incorporated with the Toronto International Authors Festival. I was there. I actually happened to step in and see Anthony Horowitz. I don't know if you know who he is. He does the Alex Rider series, and Alex,
okay.
yeah, and so he's been asked by the family family foundation, family foundation, to do some James Bond's book, which he has written, and I'm looking forward to reading some of those once I get my hands on them. I had no idea he had been writing those. I knew there was a gardener who wrote some of them, but there's some interesting stories that are still being written by authors who are using these posthumously authors, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense indeed, and I'm pretty sure it's a big honor too, because it's like, especially legendary series and franchise like that, being able to continue on with that and being recognized for your work like that. And I'm pretty sure my man wants the same to happen to him down the road, because I believe you got at least 4 books planned for this whole Outfox series altogether, right?
That's correct. Yes. This next one I'm talking about today is actually going to take place in South Korea as well. It has that same kind of flavor, which may have some political um, overtones, but it's basically a story about a family who wants to reconcile. So that's about all I can say right now because I'm still at the very beginning and there's still lots to be done. And then, of course, after that, there'll be 2 more, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, there's maybe endless possibilities, but I just want to take it one book at a time because ideas, and you don't want to repeat yourself, and you obviously don't want to bore your readers with too much of the same thing. So finding fresh material to make the stories exciting will be the challenge going forward.
Heck yeah, indeed. Heck yeah, indeed. That's right. It's okay. I know stuff is G14 classified. Don't want to spoil everything. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, so since you've been on quite a few interviews promoting the good work that you're doing now that you're embracing your dream of now being a published writer and doing and eventually being a prolific writer, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often when you're being interviewed?
Actually, I find most of the interviewers really cover quite they do their homework and they cover quite most of the uh, questions. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything that I really would like to reveal. Oh, but there was something that um, might be. Um, there's the racing aspect. A lot of people ask me about it, and I said, well, I did talk to one person about it in an interview, but didn't ask me where I got my experience from. They just assumed that I just jumped into it. And no one asked me, how did you do that? I mean, you asked me about my martial arts. So that was one that people hadn't asked me about. But the one about the racing school and that, no one ever asked me that one.
Woohoo! So now's your chance, my man. That's right
Oh, well,
indeed.
okay. So many years ago, like every year, I would have a milestone while I was working in my business. I would tell my wife, who was my partner, I said, you know what? Every year I want to do something interesting. So this year I wanted to do racing. So they had Bridgestone Firestone Racing Academy here at the Mosport racetrack. Now that name has changed, and of course, Bridgestone Firestone is Skip Barber School now. So I spent the day there racing these little race cars. What a blast! Years later, we took a course with the Ian Law School. It was called Advanced Auto Slalom because I was with the Jaguar Club at the time, and we were doing slalom racing. And there was contests going on right across the United States and Canada and Mexico because all the clubs had this particular slalom race we were doing, and we were all doing trying to get beat best times. So I took that, and then there was track school, which was strictly just learning how to drive a car on the track. So I had ended up having at least three different opportunities to learn how to drive a car properly. And that's when I ended up eventually joining the Jagged Edges Racing Club with with some of the members of my Jaguar group. And that's how I got into that racing. Don't know if you remember Chump Car Racing. It was, I don't know if they still do it anymore, but it was one of those situations where most people in daily life don't really have the funds to go in to do some really serious racing because it's very expensive. So Chump Car allowed you to get a beat up old car for $500 and get a roll bar and cage and no max suits in that and race. So it was pretty good. We'd be able to race that way because everybody in our team, there was 10 of us, we all chipped in $1,000 each or something like that, and then we'd be able to race. It was a lot of fun. But I don't think Chump Car's around any longer. But the thrill of it was something I will never forget. It's very, very a lot of fun. The camaraderie was great. The team sports was great. It was just wonderful. Yeah, something I'll never forget. But it was exciting enough that I wanted to put it in my book. Is that yeah, if you ever get a chance to read the whole thing, it's in there.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's really great to be able to do that too, because it's like, hey, like especially with the novels, especially fiction. It's kind of funny with fiction, depending on the type of novel is. Like you have liberty, but it's like folks still get mad if you don't have a touch of realism and research in the books, which is kind of funny to me.
Well, I was going to go. There was actually police academy for writers, and it was being held this June, and I had another. Unfortunately, I had another venue to be at, and I couldn't do it. But that was on for about 3 days, I think, and they teach you how to shoot a gun. They have police procedures. They had uh, canine dogs. They had pretty well almost everything you would possibly could use to help you support yourself when you're writing and be authoritative and be correct when you're writing your stuff. And I had to miss out. And but one of your guests was speaking there, Hank Philip Ryan. I think she was a guest speaker there this year. I'm kind of a little disappointed, but I had already made arrangements to be the coordinator for the Crime Writers Canada to do their motif, which is the festival for crime and mystery at the Toronto International Authors Festival. And so I was part of organizing that, where we did some booths. We had about 27 authors all together over the 3 days, and they were speaking on the stage, outdoor stage. And then we had our booths where we were selling books. We also had at least 4 of our members coming in and pitching to some publishers, and we called that Pitch Perfect. So I was busy with that, organizing that, and making sure that everything was running well. And that took the whole weekend. And by the time we got back home, I just said, "There's no way we're going to jump on a plane and go to the United States and do this course." So I kind of missed out this time, but I'd love to do it. I think the more you can really deal from an authentic point of view, I think the more your novel is going to have that ring of reality and plausibility. Because there's oftentimes an author will, assume something or learn something, and it may be totally wrong. And of course, I think one of the worst things an author ever wants to do is be called out for doing something, because it's enough criticism out there already.
Definitely can say that again, indeed. Definitely say that again, indeed. So my goodness, my goodness. So with all that wonderful stuff and like even being part of a writers group like that, man, I'm pretty sure you get all sorts of secrets indeed. So my goodness, any inspiring thoughts or words for aspiring writers to finally get it over the finish line and publish their work?
Well, if you can find an agent, that would be great. If you can find some publisher who is willing to listen to your pitch, that'd be even better. Um, you need to have a lot of help. Obviously, you can't do it on your own. I thought, the editing process was something that was going to be really like pulling teeth, but it actually ended up being a good thing. You have to learn to be a little bit less sensitive about your work, getting it cleaned up, and having people help you with it. But I think starting off, um, you're better off if you can get into a group. I was with a group called the Wordsmiths, and we would meet every month, and we would kind of critique our work a little bit. Then once you do your manuscript, you should have some beta readers, people who are not relatives, especially not your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Get someone who can critique your work a little bit, and then do your best manuscript. And of course, if you can find an agent, that would be better. If you can't, well, you can always self-publish on Kindle, depending on, like I say, how much time you have, how much resources you have. These are things that you have to consider when you're going to go and try to get a book published. But there's the many different ways. They could do a hybrid, like you mentioned, that way I went. You can go Kindle, or you can go a mainstream publisher. But whatever you do, just write the best you can and enjoy what you're doing. And if you're going to write for yourself first, and that's all I can say.
Sweet. Solid tips right there indeed. That's right indeed. Especially with the beta readers part, to make your life a lot easier too, and not being so scared of the editing process. Because hey, not all editors are the same, and the ones that you find that are golden that help you bring out the best in your work, they take your wonderful coal and make it a diamond. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Or they make your gold even shinier. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. They get the dirt off you. They turn your gold dust to a full big old rock of gold. That's right indeed. A whole brick. Maybe even a whole giant cube. A whole cube you can find in a whole IKEA store. Or better yet, a whole giant IKEA store sized piece of gold. That's right.
Okay. You've got some writing ability too, don't you?
Heck yeah, indeed. So my goodness, so if this wonderful book, Outfoxed, if it were a food, what would it be and why?
If it was a food,
Yeah.
maybe a mulligan stew, because you don't know what's in it. Or,
It's a trap.
well, it could be an ambush. Could be a mystery. You've got the soup and you don't know quite what's in it.
It's like, it tastes good, but I don't know what I'm tasting. Is there a vegan version of it tastes like chicken? You're like, I don't know if it tastes like chicken or what, but it's, sure, it tastes like tofu. Yeah, the good tofu for those that actually enjoy it. I mean, I'm not a fan of it. Oh, man. Good old mulligan stew. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. A stew so good, Tiger Woods would be proud. That's right, indeed. For all the mulligans. That's right. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is, if you'll wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in the current year, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would say read every self-development book you can. And if you could get a course with Tony Robbins or someone like him to help develop your future, that's what I would suggest I do to myself. Just go there and learn how to be confident and set your goals and reach them.
Woohoo! There you go. That's right, indeed. Get that personal development in you. That's right, indeed. Don't be scared. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Who knows? You may become the living incarnation of my man Fox, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. You may have your own good old William Fox adventure. You'll love to see it, indeed. So, my goodness. So, for those who need to tap into my man William Fox's adventure, keep up with all the wonderful things that Peter's doing, what's the best way for folks to do so?
Okay, they can reach me at my website. It's peterthomaspontsa.com. And if they want to buy my book, they can get it from amazon.com or amazon.ca, Apple Books, Barnes & Noble, Kobo Store, Google Play, and of course, Friesen Press online bookstore. So there's a lot of places where they can get it. And please, if you do read it, please do a review.
Woo! Because he's so right, y'all. That's right, indeed. Cop some copies, leave a review as well. That's the lifeblood of authors, indeed. It's encouragement to keep going. And if you're a hater, well, how'd you find this podcast? Well, hey, it's all good. It's all good. Haters make you greater. That means they read it and they secretly loved it. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Some folks leave bad reviews just because the shipping was bad.
Yeah, if they're in a bad mood, you never know what happens.
It's like, man, this toaster's so bad. Your dude, it's a book. Oh, uh, 1 star. But it's not this. You didn't even read the book. Dude, you're on the wrong page. Bad day. 1 star. The toaster didn't make the bread warm enough. Oh, okay. Well, all right. Don't leave one of those reviews. Although it'll be entertaining. Especially when folks actually read it like, oh, okay, someone had a bad day. Thought he was reviewing a toaster, but he was actually outfoxed. It's a book. Oh, man. Before a blender pops in to join the conversation, any parting words before we close up shop?
Hey, this has been a blast speaking with you. And I love your sense of humor. It's great. So hopefully we meet again.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.